Hey, my name is Sruti. I'm an author and spiritual teacher, and I write and talk about my experience of spiritual awakening and chronic pain. In 2018, I had an allergic reaction to an ear piercing that radically altered my appearance and my life. The condition, which is rare, is called erythromelalgia and feels like you have a hot frying pan stuck to your ear and face. I was also on prednisone for 6 years, which radically altered my appearance for the duration of the illness. Most doctors didn't think I would recover, but that is why I'm sharing what I have to share, because it helped me get through it, and it can help you get through your problems too. Hope you enjoy. Today I want to discuss something I don't normally talk about on this channel, which is a celebrity couple, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. But before I do, I just wanted to mention that I received a bit of confirmation regarding my previous video about Michaela Raines. The day after I made the video, I was going about my business, driving to the studio, and a train crossed my path. All the cars came to a stop. There were bikers and people walking, and in the middle of all of that, there came this fox running as fast as it possibly could, weaving through the cars, right past the biker, and off through this enormous field that we all watched the fox run through for quite a while until it reached the woods. And it was a young, beautiful, healthy fox. And everyone saw the fox, and everyone pointed at the fox, and everyone was staring at the fox. And just in case you could possibly dream of missing that particular sign from the universe and from Michaela, there was no way to miss it because we were all pointing and staring at the lovely fox. So thank you, Michaela, and thank you for that sign, because sometimes when I get intuitive nudges to make certain videos, I don't always know if they're appropriate, and it's just nice to receive some confirmation from the universe and from the environment that that video was definitely on my path and meant to be shared. So today, the reason I want to talk about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle is not because they're famous and interesting necessarily, but because they're famous and interesting for a very interesting reason for me and for the work that I'm doing, which has to do with blame and pain, and specifically how the patriarchy is built on pain and blame and uses women like Meghan Markle as examples of how to oppress certain groups of people and uphold a worldwide power structure. So how does that apply to this celebrity couple? So we have Prince Harry, who is probably at the very tippy top of this worldwide power structure. And the worldwide power structure still based on patriarchy and hierarchy and a ladder basically of certain people being better or higher than others, is sort of represented by Prince Harry. And Meghan Markle, who's a lovely, beautiful, talented human being, just because of her background as being half black and young and female, is at the bottom of that power structure. So basically, anyone at the bottom of the power structure is, first of all, female, second of all, young, and third, of a darker race. So all of those things, those three things that Meghan Markle is, make her very low on the power structure. And the only way this power structure works is if is if we all believe worldwide that some people are better or higher than others. And this is a structure that is upheld by a financial structure, it is upheld by our personal beliefs, it's upheld by worldwide religions. It is basically ordained in the name of, I mean, traditionally a Catholic God, as that is the highest religion, a religious power structure there is. But basically, in the eyes of God, we have the British monarchy being ordained to lead the British Empire, and also, therefore, in many ways, the world. And there are other countries and monarchies, and even the equivalent of that in the United States would be either the presidency or Hollywood. These power structures are a worldwide umbrella where a very small percentage, usually who are male and have a certain amount of money and a certain social background, and also of a lighter skin color, are at the very top. So, okay, everyone knows this, but how did it get this way? Why is it still this way? And why are Meghan Markle and Prince Harry kind of wedged into the center of this power struggle? Not by accident, I believe, but certainly by accident on their end. I think I don't know these people personally. Obviously, I don't have Prince Harry and Meghan Markle in my cell phone. I don't dial them up and have a chat. I just know what I know from the media and photographs, and from what I can tell, it seems like these people genuinely did fall in love. Their love, inconveniently crossed a lot of boundaries, as love inconveniently does, and they have therefore sort of pissed off the world power structure. So, in the beginning, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were not necessarily unpopular. It kind of came out of left field. All of a sudden, it was like Prince Harry's getting married to Meghan Markle, who no one had heard of, and it seemed like there was this effort to bring her into the fold of the British monarchy and try and get her to fit in, and just sort of gloss over her background and her race, and try and just have Prince Harry marry her and have her be sort of silent and smile nicely next to the Queen and maybe make some friends. And then as time went on, this sort of seemed to become more and more threatening. So it became clear that she just didn't grow up in that environment. She wasn't from that social sphere. She wasn't of that racial background. And she also happens to be this kind of vibrant, self-confident personality. Like a woman who values herself, who was a movie actress, who, has her own opinions and beliefs and just kind of is herself. And this became increasingly problematic, as in the British monarchy, everyone must fall into line in a very rigid social hierarchy at which the Queen is at the top and everyone else is at service to the Queen. And then there's sort of a ladder of inheritance and succession to the throne. And Prince Harry was never the one who was chosen to be next in line because he is an older brother. So, like, the interest in Harry and Meghan, the media around Harry and Meghan, the background of Meghan just started to become louder than the Queen and the monarchy and the power structure. So what the power structure, I'm not going to say it was like one person necessarily. It was the British press, which is subservient to the monarchy. So you could say just the power structure itself started to kind of want to spit Meghan out. And it became more and more clear that despite the initial attempts at being accepting of someone not of the background and the looks that the monarchy would have wanted for Harry, like maybe his previous girlfriends who were all British and very light-skinned and blonde and of a certain social status, the monarchy seemed to want to try and just spit Meghan out, but not Harry. Like, let's keep Harry because he's valuable, but let's just find ways to spit Meghan out because she really isn't what we wanted and she doesn't quite fit. And how do we do that in a way where we don't look bad and where we don't aggressively display bias? Because that would undermine the power structure. The whole point of the power structure is that we all have to like believe in it for it to work. Like the moment the mass amount of people don't believe in the monarchy and don't love the ruling class anymore is the moment you have like a revolution. So I'm not calling for a revolution. I don't want chaos or violence. I don't think this particular revolution I'm describing is a violent one. I think it's like a, lovey-dovey one, but it does come with a significant amount of this resistance and therefore this conflict. And the conflict ends up getting blamed onto the ones who are actually being victimized. So the conflict that started to surround Meghan, the intolerance, the desire to spit her out, the best way to do that is to do what the power structure does best, which is that it uses blame to offset all of the negative qualities and issues happening in the relationship between the abuser and the victimizer, and just like blame that back onto the victim. It's just like victim blaming at its best. So Meghan, who is actually, in my view, an innocent scapegoat in this situation, is in love with Prince Harry. She's married to him. She's trying to fit in. It's not going well. And the press and the monarchy and the hierarchy and the power structure is saying, okay, Meghan is a difficult person. Meghan is arrogant. Meghan has too many demands. Meghan doesn't get along with the Queen. Meghan is having a big fight with Kate. Meghan. And the process of blaming Meghan for all of the things that are going wrong, by making everyone believe it's her, and also hopefully making her believe it's her, and most importantly, making Prince Harry believe it's her. Because if there can be this like wedge in between Harry and Meghan, then the power structure has successfully spat out what it views as the problem, despite the fact that what we're going to find out from this video is that the power structure is actually the problem. But we all don't know that necessarily because of this blame game. And this blame game is not only shifting negative perception away from the ruling class, and those who are already in power, it's making Meghan into an object. And when you make a person into an object, especially a woman, it becomes easier to treat her very poorly and to agree with the idea that she is a scapegoat and that she has done something wrong and she is the one to blame. So it's sort of like, instead of a person who maybe we could sit inside of her shoes, like I just did a minute ago, and see she fell in love with this guy, he happens to be a prince, she's trying to fit in, and it's not going well. We just see her as this kind of one-dimensional doll. We just see images of her in the tabloids with some very negative verbiage next to her that slowly starts to like get stuck in your head, and you get this very flat 2D perspective in which a whole bunch of blame has been heaped on top of her. And it's this very static thing. Like when you blame someone, it's not the same as asking someone to take accountability for something they've done wrong. So it's not like Meghan really messed up at this party and, you know, like she may have wronged someone intentionally and really should come forward and right that wrong. Like in this situation, there's really nothing that Meghan has done wrong except exist as Meghan. And all of the blame that is being leveled at her, first of all, is probably not true. And second of all, is flat. It's just sitting there on top of her as like all this baggage that's accumulating that we all have stuck now in the back of our minds whenever we hear the word Meghan. And it's sort of horrifying how quickly that starts to add up, even with people who think they're very open-minded and maybe have similar qualities to Meghan, like people in my family who would otherwise maybe, who would support someone like Meghan, who is self-confident and creative and empathetic and all of that. But if it's twisted and everyone says she's difficult and arrogant and self-centered, now I hear from my family whenever bring up the name Meghan, oh, but I heard she's really, just difficult. And not even realize that they're just spitting back the same words that the news fed to them. So it's really important to kind of like pick this apart, because it's not just Meghan this is happening to. Meghan just happens to be a great example of someone who has become super unpopular, but like because the media has successfully run this blame game campaign with her name on it. And so, like I said, the idea was to disempower her, make her into an object, heap all of these negative qualities onto her, basically victim blame her, but make it seem like she's not the victim, she's the aggressor, and ideally separate her from Prince Harry's affection, because that's the reason she's there in the first place, is Prince Harry is in love with her. So this didn't go well. Prince Harry, his mother was Princess Diana, and like all this stuff happened to her as well, even though she wasn't even like nearly as threatening as Meghan is to the power structure, because she was in some ways from that environment, very light-skinned and blonde. But what she did was reach out to people from different classes with love. Diana of love is known for love, and that love became problematic. And also her unfortunate, habit of undermining the British monarchy's power. So the press went after Diana. Prince Harry saw this happen with his mom from a young age. He knew, because he lived it, that the press and the negative media attention did actually kill his mother, and he never forgot that. So it seems that all of this attempt to separate him from Meghan did not work. And actually, it made Harry double down, recognize the pattern, and go after, sort of lift a lid on what the media was doing again, show a toxic pattern to the public. And so this became even more problematic because this backfired so bad in the face of the power structure. So then, when it became clear that they could not separate Harry and Meghan, they then went after both Harry and Meghan. So now both Harry and Meghan are being made out to be very unpopular in the press. You know, Harry is kind of made to be this sort of rogue defector of the monarchy. Now all of a sudden has all these conflicts with the monarchy and his brother and his dad, and moved to America, and he speaks out against the press, and critics call him woke and not in a nice way, and that he's hypocritical. How can he talk about the environment but like fly on these planes? Again, just like heaping all this blame onto him to make him into an object, to spit him out of the power structure as well. It's like the power structure will do this blame game as much as it has to, against whoever it has to maintain this illusion of some people are better than others, some objects are higher than others. You're an object, I'm going to blame you, make you into a bad object, and now you're lower than me. So the power structure continues. So if this is like, if you can see the blame game just for what it is, play out just in circular patterns, you might start to question why exactly Harry and Meghan are suddenly so unpopular, despite the fact that they're young, attractive, woke, seemingly in love, generous human beings. Why is it that every business venture they try is slammed by the press? Every attempt for them to make money, to be independent from the power structure, is just maliciously attacked. Because if they made their own money, they might become independent and powerful, separate from the control of the hierarchy that says some people can have more money than others, but only if you are higher than others, and so on and so forth. So Harry and Meghan are an example, basically, of the role that the divine masculine and divine feminine are playing in societies across the world at this time. And the divine masculine and divine feminine are terms that are often used when discussing twin flames. For the purposes of what I talk about in this video, I am not going to talk about twin flames. I am not using the terms divine masculine and divine feminine to necessarily refer to a twin flame connection, but I am using it to refer to a masculine who is spiritually awakened and a feminine who is spiritually awakened, who may or may not call themselves twin flames, who may or may not call themselves soulmates. Whatever the case, we have a spiritually aware, spiritually awakened man and a spiritually aware, spiritually awakened woman in union. And this is probably the most threatening thing to the power structure at this time. And that is because of precisely what happened here with Harry and Meghan. What happens with a divine feminine who is awakening to her own self-worth and power is she awakens out of the widespread idea that she is an object. And she awakens out of the myth of being blamed for other people's pain. And that is something I talk about over and over and over again. I have found from my experiences of pain that pain is not something that we should be using to blame ourselves or other people. Pain is a spiritual part of life. Pain is an eraser. It takes away every false layer of who we think we are and reveals the true core of our being that never fails, never leaves us, never changes, and never ends. That's underneath our thoughts, our feelings, and even our sense of having control over our own bodies. It's even underneath our eyesight, breathing, and consciousness. It's our most pure awareness of all of those layers. It's the awareness that is aware of even the ends of consciousness. In order to be aware of the ends of consciousness, as the awareness must have no end to be aware of an ending. Otherwise, it wouldn't be you. So the part that you is the one that is aware of all of the endings. So if you know that that's what pain is, you are not going to blame yourself or others for that happening, because it just showed you a very pure, divine, powerful part of yourself. It also will show you that pain is not meant to harm you. Pain is a form of guidance. So when something painful appears in our lives, it is the universe's way of pointing us to a better way of doing something, pointing us in a different direction, or just coming in and ending something for us that wasn't good for us to begin with. And the purpose of that and the purpose of the universe is to put you in alignment with your best life. And a lot of people don't believe that until you've been in a situation of pain where you've had forced endings and you've been forced to see how much more awesome your life can be if you allow pain to be a guidepost in your life. Now, the power structure has never viewed it this way, and that is because since the time of Adam and Eve, this overarching religious myth that whether or not you believe in it or believe it's true or are part of this religion, this is a myth that has lodged itself in the subconscious realms of humanity and is actually unknowingly a toxic pattern guiding most people every day. And that is that when Adam was kicked out of the Garden of Eden, he blamed Eve for being tempted by a snake, eating from the tree of knowledge, and therefore subjecting them to all of the negative things in life: pain, death, illness, so on and so forth. And Adam didn't have the tools at that time to know what I just said, that pain is an eraser and a guidepost. So Adam decides the easiest thing to do is just blame Eve. Eve is less aggressive than he is. She's the feminine aspect. All he sees about Eve is she's easier to blame. She's weaker. She's quieter. She's smaller. And that was the way of humanity at the time this myth was popular. And so this pattern of blaming women and therefore making women into objects and into, so like in the myth, Adam is created in the image of God, who's a man, and Eve is made from Adam's rib. So the whole myth shows Adam to be this holy religious figure and Eve to be this secondary object from his rib. And this is the power structure. This one dynamic became the root of this global financial, social power structure that I just mentioned, that is horrifically threatened by the divine union of the awakening feminine and the awakening masculine, who have come into union and are on the same page and cannot be separated by blame. And that is Harry and Meghan, and that is the divine role they are playing as divine counterparts. So the first one to awaken is the divine feminine. She realizes that rather than being blamed for other people's pain, She can use pain to look inside of herself, realize at the core of her being, she's not an object. She's formless. Her awareness is spirit. It is spiritual. It is beyond this world and sees through this world. And so she wakes up out of her form and also feels empowered back into her form because she realizes she is not an object. She is not just her body. She is not just her image. She is not just a woman. She is the source of spirit, the actual source of the real God that is not masculine or feminine, but beyond all gender. That was a lot. So the divine feminine, the new Eve, wakes up first, and her self-empowerment and her authenticity and her self-confidence becomes super threatening because she's not accepting the fact that the power structure says she's an object. She's not accepting the fact that the power structure says she's responsible for the world's problems. She's not accepting the fact that other people are better than her or higher than her in a hierarchy. And since this is how the actual pattern of oppression is the way women are treated. So it's not just women who are blamed and made into objects, it's anyone. It's people of darker skin tones. It's people who are weaker or disabled or sick. It's anything that you want to oppress and make weaker or worse than you blame them for bad things and make their image into a negative image, make them believe also that this was their own fault, make the victim blaming so invisible that the victims believe they are the victims. And when a young woman who's supposed to be at the bottom of the power structure doesn't believe that and is living her best life and thinks she's good enough to be married to someone at the very top of the power structure, that is threatening. And then what's even more threatening is when the divine masculine is awake enough, maybe not to know all of that at once, but certainly part of his awakening is to realize that the woman he's in love with, who he's likely in love with because it's real love, and real love is loving someone's spirit, not just their body or their form. So him seeing his counterpart attacked for no other reason than being authentic or true to themselves, and the uproar it creates in the power structure, he begins to realize something's not right. And if he's awake enough, like Prince Harry, perhaps because he's seen this happen, like to his mother, he doesn't buy into that. And if he stands behind the awakened feminine, the divine feminine, that is the absolute nightmare of the power structure, because it means now not only is the divine feminine awake, she has support. And the support she has is from someone who should be at the top of the power structure. And even if you're just looking at a man and a woman, the woman is always lower than the man in the traditional power structure. So any divine counterpart relationship is going to threaten the power structure. It doesn't matter if you have an extreme difference like race or just the ordinary difference of being male or female. And if it's based on real love, that love is exactly what is undermining the traditional power structure that's based on all of the false layers, the mind, projection, all of that heaped onto you as if you were an object. It's based on objects, and objects are not ultimately real. They're not ultimately made from the source of love. And so that's why this revolution is not like this anarchy, violent chaos. It's a love revolution. It's not quite the free hippie love from the 60s. This is divine counterpart love. And the more divine counterparts there are that awaken to their own power and then come into union and are unshakable, the more the power structure is eroded, and the more love starts to replace control and objectification and hierarchy and patriarchy. So now we have a divine feminine revolution of love up against the old structure of fear and objectification and blame, the blame game that makes people into objects in the first place. It's not just what we're seeing happen with Harry and Meghan. This is just a really good example of a divine counterpart couple that is playing this divine role of activators and awakeners in the consciousness, and at the moment is being just relentlessly attacked in an attempt to make them as unpopular as possible. I don't think, as we awaken further, this couple will remain so vilified. But if we can explain why, we might be able to unwind some of this subconscious brainwashing that we've all been sort of forced to. It's really been forced upon us in the media. But it's not just them. It's this contrast between power structures that won't let go, like the Trump administration and world dictators and certain monarchies across the world, and the new potential ruling power, which, as we see, are people like, for example, Kamala Harris, a Black woman who should traditionally be at the bottom of the hierarchy. Should she become put into a position of power like she should have been in the 2024 elections, we would begin to see the new power structure take hold. Prince Harry and Meghan are examples of powerful leaders of the new power structure, and countless other examples of just people who are not celebrities or who are not famous, who are important in their communities, who are respected by those around them, who are waking up, coming into union, and becoming a force for the new wave of the new power structure that is a divine feminine power structure based on equality, on caring for each other as human beings and as spiritual beings, not ranking each other as better or worse in a hierarchy that gives resources only to the few and starves the many, and is circular rather than hierarchical and based on love. I mean, love is circular. Love allows us to have a unique expression. Love allows us to be equal. So that is the larger pattern underlying a seemingly controversial celebrity couple, and also that is playing out politically and in the news every single day. So I would highly recommend reading the newspaper and just playing the blame game and just looking for in the headlines, just scan the headlines, don't read the article. Just look for blame. Just watch the blame game play out across pretty much every news article, some more hidden than others. And watch for who's being objectified and the motive and perhaps the subconscious patterning behind who is blamed, who is vilified, and why the power structure might emphasize one particular woman over another, or one particular couple over another, or a business over another. There is I'm not even sure this pattern is visible to those who use it, honestly. I think this is actually just a knee-jerk reaction that people have to pain that ends up facilitating a toxic, evil financial power structure. Like, am I sure that President Trump is smart enough to recognize what he's doing when he blames everyone around him for everything that goes wrong, when in fact it's always him? No. I think that this man is terrified of anything painful. I think that that's how he deals with life. I think that's why he lives on a golf course, because a golf course is like this unrealistic, manicured, highly really upheld by a system of servitude in which a lot of servants make sure that there's nothing sick or dying or brown or old or anything ugly in the landscape. And he just like lives his life in this fake, always green grass, always white tablecloth environment where nothing is ever bad, and you theoretically don't have to feel any pain. And of course, since life isn't meant to be lived that way and doesn't exist that way, he will still experience pain. He'll just throw tantrums and blame it on others and heap blame on other people's heads and have people fired, and you're fired, and you're fired, and you're fired, and you're fired. All of that comes from a fear of pain. So actually my favorite photograph, just to wrap this up, of Harry and Meghan, I'm going to put it up here on the screen, is the two of them in kind of a painful situation, smiling at each other. So they're walking together in the rain, surrounded by the aggressive, hostile press, you know, in the midst of all of this negative media about them. And they're at a trip where they went back to visit the monarchy, and it's just like looks miserable. And they're just like smiling at each other, like totally in love. And I love this image as kind of a reflection of the potential of what could happen in a divine counterpart relationship, in which both parties are very aware of how they manage pain in their lives, and also very aware of how important love is, and that love is at the root of all of our experiences, whether it's the highs of romance or the lows of, you know, bad press and rain and a hostile social environment. So next time you are sort of mindlessly buying into any sort of gossip, whether it's about a celebrity or just a person, just try and be aware of the subtle, toxic dynamics behind that. Just be aware if the people who are talking, how do they deal with pain? You know, how do they, is it something that they try and eradicate from their lives? Is it something that they embrace as a teacher? Is there like a healthy balance where you both accept pain and try and work your way through it? I mean, ideally, you're not glorifying pain, you're not seeking pain, but you're also not trying to eradicate it. So a really balanced perspective on pain is just that when it happens to appear, and we never like when it does, I hate pain. This is the ironic part about the work I do, is like the whole point is that I hate pain so much that we don't actually have to experience as much of it as we do. It's like by avoiding pain, we make more of it somehow. And by allowing pain to appear if we can trust the universe and we don't normally trust the universe, to allow pain to guide us. We can also trust the universe to show us how to live our lives with the least amount of pain possible, but also appreciating the way it shows us our best lives when it does appear. Ultimately, I do want to say that even though pain will continue to be a part of our lives and will never be fully eradicated, we are really here to know ourselves as deeply as possible as spiritual beings, which is ultimately love, to live a life of love and to live our best lives as self-empowered independently, as the best version of ourselves, and also potentially in union with a counterpart who has gone through their own version of spiritual awakening. That is my view of life. I do not view life as being one long episode of pain. I don't think we should seek pain out. I just think that when pain appears, we really need to understand a new approach, both in ourselves and ultimately this ripple effect outward that will change society from the bottom up and from the top down. Thank you. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to learn more about me, you can check out my website, which is www.meet-shruti.com, linked below. Also, since I am a vastly better writer than I am speaker, I'd highly recommend checking out my book, The Hidden Value of Not Knowing, also linked below on Amazon. And of course, I'm obligated to say you should like, subscribe, comment. See you next time.